Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating book, Work, Work, Work.
Yeah, it's a really interesting exploration of, well, work, the real deal, not the hype.
Exactly. Like, we hear so much about finding your passion and those aha moments, but this book dives into what happens after that initial spark.
It gets real about the effort, the grind, the sometimes not so glamorous reality of turning an idea into something tangible.
Right. It's like we all love those stories of overnight success, but how often does that actually happen?
Right. Work, work, work kind of flips the script on all that.
Okay, so how does it do that? Where do we even begin unpacking all this?
Well, they start with this anecdote about Edgar Degas, the
Who's
painter.
that? The Impressionist, right?
Exactly. Brilliant artist, but apparently he really struggled when he tried to write poetry.
Huh. I wouldn't have guessed that. I
Yeah.
mean, you think someone that creative could, just excel in any art form?
Yeah, that's kind of the point the book's making. It uses this Degas story to illustrate a bigger idea. They even quote him complaining to his poet friend, Stéphane Mallarmé. Degas was like, I can't manage to say what I want, and yet I'm full of ideas.
So classic writer's block, right? Happens to the best of us.
Maybe, but Mallarmé's response is key here. He told Degas, it's not with ideas, my dear Degas. That one makes verse. It's with words.
Okay, I see where they're going with this. It's not enough to just have the inspiration, the idea.
Right. It's got to translate into something. You have to wrestle with it, shape it, turn it into something real.
So the real work begins after that initial light bulb moment.
Exactly. And that's where work, work, work really digs in. It emphasizes that consistent effort is key. More important than talent, even.
Okay, hold on. More important than talent. Really?
Yeah, the book is pretty adamant about that. It even quotes Henry Ford, who said, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do.
I love that quote. It's a good reality check. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
Right. We have to actually do the work.
Exactly. And there's another quote in the book that really stuck with me. It's from Nina Holton. She was a sculptor.
Oh, yeah. What did she say?
Something like, that germ of an idea does not make a sculpture which stands up. It just sits there. So the next stage, of course, is the hard work.
So taking that raw idea and molding it into something tangible, into a finished piece, but that can feel so daunting, especially when you see those stories of people just like exploding onto the scene, becoming overnight successes.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, we've all heard that 10,000 hours to mastery thing, right? But this book actually challenges that idea.
Really? How so?
Well, they argue that true mastery is not some finish line you cross. It's more about constantly striving, a continuous process. They even have this term for it, no end zone.
No end zone, huh? So there's no point where you can just coast, just rest on your laurels.
Nope. It's about finding that love for the process itself, for always pushing yourself to get better.
Which can be hard, right? I mean, our egos love that instant gratification, that recognition for just having a good idea.
It's definitely tempting, isn't it? Wanting all the praise without the sweat.
The book even calls us out on that, doesn't
Oh,
it?
yeah. It straight up asks the reader, have you ever felt that pull to skip the hard work and jump straight to the recognition?
Ugh, all the time.
Right. But then how do we deal with that? How do we get out of our own way?
Yeah, does the book offer any solutions?
It emphasizes being really intentional about where we focus our energy. Are we actually doing the work? Or are we just like feeding our ego's need for attention?
So basically choosing between fleeting validation or really committing to creating something meaningful.
That's the choice we all face,
Right.
right? And the book uses these incredible examples of people who chose the harder path, the path of sustained, quiet effort, like Bill Clinton, for instance.
Oh yeah, that anecdote about his note cards, right?
Yeah.
He was collecting names and contact info decades before he even ran for president. Like building his network way in advance.
And it wasn't just collecting them. He was super meticulous about following up, making calls, writing letters, keeping detailed notes about every interaction.
So it wasn't some calculated scheme. It was just consistent, dedicated work over years.
And it paid off, right? It laid the groundwork for his future success. It's like those small, seemingly insignificant actions can compound over time.
So it's not about making a big splash. It's about those steady, consistent efforts, day after day.
Exactly. And the book has another great example, Charles Darwin. I mean, the guy spent decades working on his theory of evolution, mostly in obscurity. He wasn't rushing to publish or anything.
He was just committed to getting it right, not chasing fame or recognition.
Right. And that brings us to a question for you, the listener. Where in your own life might quiet, persistent effort be needed? What are you working on that might not be getting the attention it deserves, but you know is important?
Ooh, that's a good one to ponder, isn't it?
Hmm.
Are we putting in the work even when no one's watching? Because honestly, I think that's what makes the difference in the long run.
That's what this book calls embracing the grind. It has this great phrase, do it if you're going to do it.
Love that. It's a call to action. No more dabbling, just full commitment.
Yes. And it ties into this Latin expression the book uses, materium superabat opus.
Okay, you're going to have to translate that one for me.
It means the workmanship was better than the material.
Ah, I see. So it's not about the resources you have, it's what you do with them.
Exactly. And there's this great anecdote about Bill Bradley, the basketball player who became a senator.
I think I've heard of them. What's the story?
Well, he used to remind himself, when you are not practicing, remember, someone somewhere is practicing, and when you meet him, he will win.
Whoa, that's intense. But it makes sense, right? If someone's outworking you, they're going to have the advantage. So the question is, are we willing to outwork everyone else?
It's a question of dedication, of how much we're willing to invest. And this brings us to another fascinating point. The book connects this idea of effort to the marshmallow test.
Oh yeah, the one where kids could choose one marshmallow now or two later.
Right. And it turns out the kids who could delay gratification, who could resist that temptation, ended up having more success later in life.
Interesting. So they're saying that same principle applies to achieving long-term goals. But how do we apply that to, actually doing the work?
It's about recognizing the marshmallows in our own lives, those temptations that pull us away from the real work.
Yeah.
What are those things for you?
That's a good question. Could be anything, right? Social media, chasing those quick wins, focusing on the praise instead of the process.
Right. And the book argues that learning to resist those temptations is key. It's about playing the long game.
Speaking of things that can trip us up, I was struck by how the book critiques that whole fake it till you make it mentality.
Yeah.
I feel like we hear that advice everywhere.
Yeah, but this book calls that out pretty hard. It compares it to professions where faking competence is not an option,
Like a surgeon or a pilot, you definitely don't want them faking it in the operating room or the cockpit.
Exactly. And that's the book's point. It advocates for genuine mastery, not just appearances. It's about developing real skills.
Substance over style.
Yeah.
The actual work over the hype.
Right. And that really goes back to the core message, embracing the grind, that consistent effort that leads to real achievement.
So we've been talking about this whole idea of embracing the grind, the hard work it takes to really achieve something. But what does that actually look like, day to day?
Well, there's this really interesting metaphor the book uses. It says, you know a workman by the chips they leave. To judge your progress properly, just take a look at the floor.
Chips. What do you mean by that?
I think they represent the tangible output of your efforts, like the mistakes you make along the way, things you try and discard, the hours you put in, even when you don't see immediate results.
So it's like the evidence of your work. It's not about seeking praise or external validation.
Right. It's about looking at your own progress and being honest with yourself about where you're at.
It kind of shifts the focus inward, doesn't it? It's not about what other people think. It's about your own assessment of your work.
Exactly. And the book suggests that it's those who can find satisfaction in that process, in seeing those chips on the floor, who ultimately achieve true mastery.
So it's about finding joy in the journey, not just the destination, which I think can be tough. I mean, we're constantly bombarded with these messages about overnight success and finding shortcuts.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in that. But this book really reminds us that real achievement takes time and dedication and a willingness to, embrace the ups and downs of the creative process.
It's about playing the long game, even when it's not glamorous or Instagram-worthy.
Right. And being mindful of our ego's need for instant gratification.
Oh yeah, that little voice that's always saying you should be further along, that you need more recognition, that you deserve a shortcut.
Yep, that's the one. And the book really challenges us to confront that. It basically says we have a choice to make.
Okay, so what's the choice?
We can either invest our energy in feeding our ego's desire for validation, or we can channel that energy into actually doing the work.
So again, it comes down to where we're putting our focus. Are we chasing those marshmallows that distract us from what really matters?
Exactly. It could be anything that pulls us away from the process. Social media, comparing ourselves to others, chasing those quick wins instead of focusing on long-term growth.
So it's about being honest with ourselves about how we're spending our time and energy.
And making sure it's aligned with our values and our goals. And yeah, that can be tough, especially in a world that often rewards flash over substance.
But this book encourages us to resist those temptations, right?
Yeah.
To really focus on building something real, something lasting.
Exactly. And I think that brings us back to that final thought. You know a workman by the chips they leave. To judge your progress properly, just take a look at the floor.
I love that. It's such a powerful image. It reminds us that the evidence of our efforts is all around us.
It's not about what we say we're going to do. It's about the tangible results of our dedication and effort.
And it's a challenge to each of us, isn't it? To really look at what kind of chips we're creating.
What kind of legacy are we building through our work?
It's a question that really makes you think. Are we focused on building something meaningful? Or are we just chasing fleeting validation?
Remember, those chips don't have to be perfect. They represent the process, the journey.
So it's not about striving for flawlessness. It's about embracing those imperfections as evidence that we're showing up and putting in the work.
Right. And as we kind of wrap up this exploration of work, 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 we encourage you to think about your own chips.
What have you created? What have you built or accomplished through your dedication and hard work?
And remember, the work is never really done. There's always room for improvement, always something new to learn.
Always another chip to carve.
So keep striving, keep creating, keep leaving your mark on the world.
One thing I really appreciate about work, work, work is that it's honest about the struggles. It doesn't pretend that achieving something meaningful is always easy.
Right. It acknowledges those setbacks, the frustrations, those moments where you're just like, is this even worth it?
Yeah. Like, it's not all sunshine and roses, which honestly is kind of refreshing.
Definitely. And the book even suggests that those moments of struggle, those times when you're surrounded by chips on the floor and feeling like giving up, that's when your true character is revealed.
So it's about pushing through those challenges, learning from those mistakes, and using them to fuel your progress.
Exactly. It's about building resilience, that ability to bounce back from setbacks and keep going, even when you don't see immediate results.
And the book seems to argue that it's the people who can embrace that whole process, who find satisfaction in the work itself, who ultimately achieve lasting success.
Yeah. It's about shifting your mindset away from always needing external validation and instead finding that fulfillment in the journey itself, in the daily dedication to your craft.
So not about trying to hack your way to the top or looking for shortcuts.
Nope. It's about putting in the time, the effort, the dedication that real mastery demands.
It's about those chips on the floor, those tangible signs that you're committed to the process.
And I think that's a powerful message for all of us, really, no matter what we're striving for in life.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that real achievement is within reach, but it requires embracing the whole journey,
The ups and the downs.
not just focusing on the destination.
Exactly. It's about finding that joy in the process itself, the daily work of honing your craft.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into work, 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 we encourage you to take a look at your own chips.
Think about what you've created, what you've built, what you've accomplished through your hard work and dedication.
And remember, every chip, every mark you leave is a testament to your commitment.
To the journey of mastery.
And, hey, even though we're wrapping up this deep dive, remember, the work's never really done right.
There's always room for improvement, always something new to learn.
Always another chip to carve.
So keep striving, keep creating, and keep leaving your mark on the world.
Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.